The Prime Minister will only deliver 15% of what he promised just a few weeks ago. Is 15% a success in the eyes of the Deputy Prime Minister?
More than 1.1 million doses have already arrived in Canada. 6 million will arrive by the end of the first quarter, and every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will be by September.
That is not a plan. Those are some goals, but Canadians need to know what the plan is to achieve those goals.
More political back and forth today over the government's vaccine rollout. This week, Canada is receiving no Pfizer-BioNTech doses. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll receive less than initially planned. The federal government says Pfizer, though, has promised to deliver all 4 million of its promised shots by the end of March. Erin O'Toole is the leader of the Conservative Party. He joins us now. Hi, Mr. O'Toole. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Good to be back.
You tweeted a few days ago that you're focused on, quote, working together to improve the government's vaccine plan. Other than criticize that plan, what is your party prepared to do to work with the Liberals?
Well, part of the reason we asked the Health Committee to look at COVID and asked for the documents last fall is we wanted transparency on what was the plan, what were the contractual commitments, when were vaccines going to come, did we have the logistics chain from syringes to refrigeration. The government's been opaque at every step, Vashi. I want them to succeed because we need vaccines to turn the corner and reopen the economy. I think part of the concern Canadians have is the Prime Minister's own statements change by the day. And that's not a plan, it's eroding confidence. So let's be transparent. If they don't have the syringes and we're not getting the doses out of the bottles we need to, that's a tragedy to waste that precious commodity. So how can we quickly fix the situation or secure new supply?
So they have said that there are 40 million of the right syringes coming, that they're on order. And as far as the contracts go, I've looked around the world to see if there are contracts fully out in the public for everyone to take a look like, and there aren't. It looks like most countries have taken the position that that would undermine their negotiating position. So what would it accomplish beyond, I guess, increasing the amount of detail that you have before you to make that stuff public?
Well, first, they only ordered the syringes in late November, so they were late on that, like rapid tests. We don't need the commercial information in the contracts, Vashi. We need the timelines. When we have 0 vaccines this week, and up until just the last 24 hours, next week the plan said unknown. That's not a plan. We need transparency on when people can expect to be vaccinated, which groups will be vaccinated first, how quickly we can get them out. Because already we know the numbers mean this September date they're saying everyone will be vaccinated by, that cannot be met by their own numbers. So let's be honest with Canadians. Let's work together on a solution.
How do you know that it can't be met? I'm unclear on how their numbers don't make sense. I mean, I take your point that the doses that were expected are not what actually came to fruition so far. But the ramp-up plan that has been laid out by even the vaccines that have been approved so far would meet that commitment by the end of September.
That's incorrect, because they're not meeting what they promised in terms of the ramp out. There's 0 this week, only a few Pfizer next week. They have to do about 2 million a week, Vashi, to hit the 30 million Canadians above 18. And remember, it's a 2-dose vaccine. And right now, we're not even using the full dose value out of each bottle because we don't have the right syringes. So Canadians need some certainty here. So if they have to adjust the date, adjust the date. It's better to be transparent with Canadians than to be saying to us yesterday, as the Prime Minister said, one number, and then early in the morning today, they changed their number. So either they're making things up as they go along, or they're not being straight with Canadians.
But I'm not sure you're representing the discrepancy completely accurately. Look, they said there'd be 1.2 million in January. There's 1.1 million doses. They said that there would be, your MPs in the House were saying that we're only getting 8% of what were expected in January for Pfizer. It's really 70% of what was expected. Yes, there is a 5-week period in which supply has decreased, but there's no indication from Pfizer or the federal government that beyond that the supply will.
They haven't even clarified whether the numbers Pfizer are committing to is the 6 doses with the proper syringe or the 5. There's discrepancy of 500,000 doses just for the short term, Vashi. And as I said, we're only assessing based on the government's own documents. which, remember, last fall they would not share. They're not releasing at least the timelines and a lot of detail from the contracts. We don't need to see all of the contracts, but this is why they seem to be making it up as they go along. The numbers shift by the day, and that doesn't give confidence at a time we have to have a plan so that we can turn the corner and focus on getting our economy back on track.
Again, though, you're not being completely accurate. They did clear up today why there was the 500,000 discrepancy, why some provinces thought it was 3.5 million doses. Major General Fortin says that is based on Pfizer's expectation of 6 doses per vial versus the 5 that we're counting right now. If, in fact, it doesn't turn out that Health Canada approves moving the label to 6 doses, it will still be 4 million doses at the end of March that are delivered to Canada. So why is that misleading?
The Prime Minister's number yesterday that he answered us in the House changed this morning in what they advised the provinces. This is me working on what limited information we have, Vashi. This is in the Prime Minister's hands. Last fall, when we said we were not prepared, we knew they might have some sample doses before Christmas. That gave people hope that we were on a plan that was going to be steady and sustained. The provinces are ready to go, and in some cases, you just had Premier Moe, they've actually exceeded their dose rate that they expected at this point, and they're out of vaccine. So what can we do to fix it? I would like to see a clear plan. I think the government should release some of their contracts. And really, why we're in this bind, we gave up the opportunity to manufacture anything here at home, and they still haven't explained why they focus so closely on China out of the gate as opposed to preparing the way for mRNA or to do a domestic non-mRNA vaccine here in Canada.
But they haven't necessarily, I mean, even on that point, are you exaggerating? It's not like there are candidates in Canada right now ready to be manufactured. In fact, the first ones won't be probably for another year. That would not solve the problem of vaccination immediately.
Well, did they look to partner? They're putting $200 million into the NRC plant in the Montreal area. Did they try and contract with some of the big pharma players early on? I know that whenever it comes to intellectual property, the Western companies don't want anything to do with partnering with a Chinese state-owned enterprise. There's Medicago, there's the company out of Calgary that didn't get calls returned for months. So we lost an opportunity to secure our supply by having it made here. I would like to hear an answer on that. The Prime Minister knew the Chinese deal had fallen apart, and they were still telling people for months that they were planning on manufacturing here. What happened? When did they know? And why didn't they come up with a Canadian solution?
I understand those questions, but it wasn't as though what was happening with that precluded them from securing deals with vaccines that would be produced elsewhere. And in fact, that's what they did. My understanding is Canada was the first country, for example, to sign with Moderna, the fourth to sign with Pfizer and BioNTech. So it's not like they weren't working on a plan B at the same time.
This is the smoke screen, Vashi, the portfolio of vaccines. I don't really want the most vaccines by the end of 2023. We need vaccines immediately to get vaccination rates up so we can reopen the economy. This is what is also not transparent. Some of those contracts, Vashi, they talk about the portfolio are options. When are the options to be exercised? What is the rate of delivery? European countries will continue to get vaccines from the Belgian plant, but not Canada. We haven't even gotten a clear answer on that because the retooling is not affecting everyone.
I take your point on those questions, and I get it because I asked the government a lot of them too. But the way in which you're framing it is not, again, I circle back, like it's not always accurate, right? It's not, those vaccines are not all coming at the end of 2023.
That is not the case, Vashi.
They're not all coming at the end of 2023. You're putting out some false information to substantiate your argument, which I understand is a valid one, but in the meantime, people might be getting afraid.
Vashi, that is not the case. I'm using what little information I can get. You're saying you can't get answers either? Let's have a full rundown of what this portfolio actually is. What are the timelines for each of the companies they've secured contracts with? What are the volume rates per month? These are reasonable questions to ask in the midst of a pandemic. Remember, in the fall, they threatened to go to an election whenever we tried to ask questions. They used companies and chambers of commerce to say, don't ask for these details. All we want to see is what is this portfolio, on what time frame, how many of the orders are real orders as opposed to options to buy. It's a good idea to buy more than you need, Vashi, but I want immediacy for these contracts, and it's clear we can't even count on the Prime Minister's numbers on a 24-hour basis.
I would just add that those vaccines need to be approved before you know how soon they can be delivered, but there's a question out of that too. Anyway, I'll leave it there,
But
Mr.
They signed the contracts before the approval, so this is part of the transparency we need.
But you still can't say exactly when something's going to be delivered until you know if it's approved, at least at this point. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm out of time, Mr. O'Toole. I do appreciate your time as always, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erin O'Toole is the leader of the Federal Conservative Party. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.